Welcome to Red-tastic. Story 1. My boyfriend, 31 male, wants me, 30 female, to move in with him and pay extra rent so his broke roommates can pay less. I live in a beautiful but expensive 1BR in a big city. I freelance, which is a very unstable income. But with my savings, I could coast for several years, developing my skills until I get a new job in my dream career. My boyfriend is in business and makes a good income. He's a really wonderful and thoughtful and sweet guy. And we see a future family together and are deeply in love. He's also a very generous guy. Right now, he lives with 2 of his college friends. One is unemployed but trying to find work and has been for 4 months. The other is employed but doesn't make very much. He pays most of the rent so that each of them only have to pay $500 a month. And he bought TVs and Xboxes for everyone to use too. The situation is kind of frustrating for him, but he also doesn't want to turn them out on the impossible big city housing market. How are they supposed to afford a place on their own? I was in a similar situation 2 years ago when a college friend of mine came to live with me. She was very, very depressed. So I told her she could stay with me rent-free for a little bit until she got back on her feet. And I even let her have the bedroom while I slept on the futon in the living room. We lived like that for 2 years. I know I'm stupid. While I started to resent her more and more, she spent all day browsing the internet, and even though she had a part-time job, she could never afford rent or even her own car. I let her use my car to get to work, while I walked. Our friendship ended when I moved out to the apartment I'm in right now, and I told her I wanted my own space. And she was forced to move back to Michigan. My boyfriend wants me to move in with him to a big communal house they're looking at renting, with space for 6 people. The last 2 would be a couple who want to move ASAP because their lease is coming up. His broke roommates would be coming with because he feels awful about leaving them out in the cold. I keep telling him they're 30 and they're grown-ass men, but he feels like he's responsible for them because they're all like brothers. But he got lucky with a cushy consultant job where he barely does anything all day. And they're looking for work or working hard but at a minimum wage job. Also, he's just a very laid-back and sweet person, so he always wants to help. The house is only affordable for everyone if I move in too, as a 6th member of the house. And it's only affordable for his broke friends if he and I agree to pay an extra $100 so that they can pay $100 less. Basically, he and I pay $1,400 for a shared room. The couple pays $1,200 for their shared room. His unemployed friend pays $500 for an individual room. His part-timer friend pays $500 for an individual room. He only asked me to do this because the rent I would be paying in the communal house in this scheme, $700, is half the rent I'm paying now. So the extra money shouldn't matter. But it makes me feel so resentful and reminds me of my roommate situation. He offered to pay it all if I'm worried about finances. But I don't want that. I feel like it would be unfair to let him pay $200 more for the same bedroom I'm sharing. And I feel like we are a team. I just want things to at least be split evenly so everyone pays $600. I don't like feeling like things are unfair because I lived through that for so long. Also, I don't really know how to handle it. I feel under such pressure because the couple needs to move ASAP, and everyone's so excited about it. Also, I'm a very introverted person who really needs a lot of time alone, and a communal house makes me nervous. When we went to an open house, he commented that I looked scared. I am. What do I do, Reddit? Update. I put my foot down. I told him he was free to do it, but I was out. And he said the plan would fall apart without my contribution. And I was like, well, sorry, but I don't want to be in a housing situation where everyone else benefits but I have to suck it up. Also, it turned out the house we were looking at got snapped up and he wanted us to live in a 4BR apartment, where I would be paying $1,000 to share a bedroom with him in an apartment of 6 people stuffed into 4 bedrooms. And everyone else is paying $500 to $700 per person, when my own apartment is only several hundred more, and huge and airy and nicely decorated. Thank you, good people of relationships, for your perspectives and advice. It helped so much when I had to explain my perspective. I'm glad you finally put your foot down, OP. Your boyfriend sounds like an extremely generous person, which is okay. But you shouldn't have to inconvenience yourself in your own home because he wants to be generous to his friends, especially when you'll be paying a lot more for rent. It makes no sense to choose to be a part of his plan if he plans to put you in a 4-bedroom apartment with 6 people who aren't even close to it. He needs to get himself together and stop enabling his friends. They're never going to grow up if he keeps coddling them and being their safety net. Now for some comments. F no, don't do this. You're not a charity for able men in their 30s. Nice if he wants to support his mates, but there's no reason for you to do that. Also, saw the point about you being introverted. Please stay in your 1-bed place in peace. So you would be paying more than them. You would also lose your working space and your serenity. No, just don't do it. Sounds like you're with an enabler. If any of your kids have difficulties in becoming self-sufficient, he will probably enable them to continue to be lazy and depressed, just like he's been doing with his grown friends. Enjoy never having a house to yourselves ever again once your 35-year-old son moves back home after his acting career, that is, mooching off his girlfriends, while he works the door at a comedy club part-time, doesn't work out. If your boyfriend can't demonstrate that he can disengage from this situation on his own, then reconsider your future together. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for ordering for my girlfriend at a restaurant because she took too long to decide? My girlfriend Jackie is literally so slow to decide on anything. Restaurants are the worst. We went out for dinner last night, and I was already dreading the ordering as soon as we walked in. We get the menus and Jackie doesn't even look at the menu. She starts talking about her day, and then the waitress comes back and asks us if we know what we want to order yet. Jackie has still barely glanced at the menu, and I can feel myself getting more and more pissed off and annoyed. She then gets up and goes to the washroom, and the waitress comes back afterwards. She says she'll come back when Jackie is back, but I stop her and say that she told me to order for her. I order something for Jackie and she comes back from the washroom. I told her that she took so long and was being embarrassed, so I ordered for her. She didn't say much and got quiet the rest of the night, which was fine by me. When we got home, she told me that she didn't appreciate me speaking on her behalf, but I just told her that I wouldn't have to if she didn't take so long. Am I the a-hole? This has been a recurring thing of her taking way too long. You're the a-hole, OP. If it bothered you that much, you should have told your partner about it. You ordering for her sounds controlling, and I'm sure she didn't enjoy the date after that incident. I understand how it can be annoying that she kept the waitress waiting, but it isn't as big of a deal as you're making it out to be. You should look into the reason why what she did annoyed you so much. From what I know, it seems like you don't like her anymore, and if that's the case, I suggest you break up with her instead of treating her like this. Now for some comments. You're the a-hole. You just sat there getting silently annoyed and upset with your girlfriend over nothing. You couldn't sit for 10 minutes and talk about her day at the beginning of the date? Or you couldn't politely say, I'm really hungry, could we take a second to look over the menus and decide what we want first? This was immature, rude, and controlling. You're the a-hole. And probably not just in this situation. You sat and got legitimately angry at her taking too long, but didn't even mention it until you just decided to order for her without her there. Then when she politely addressed it, You blamed her entirely, when the issue is exactly as someone said, you were just looking to be mad, instead of having the guts to mention it even politely. I am amazed that you're doubting who the a-hole is. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she didn't raise her kids right? My husband and I have 2 children, Carolyn 4 and Jacob 6. My twin sister Grace has 3 kids, David 7, Adam 9, and Rose 13. For the first decade of Rose's life, she was raised by our parents, her grandparents. And when Adam was born, he also came to live with them, because Grace couldn't afford to have them living with her. A few years ago, Grace invited Adam and Rose to come back and live with her, saying she now had the time and money to take care of them. She ended up spoiling the boys but said that Rose, who had hit puberty, was a woman because of this and was expected to take on the same role Grace had. So Rose ended up basically being a live-in nanny to her brothers. It was our birthday yesterday, and we always have family dinner with our parents, spouses, and children at our parents' home. At one point, Rose excuses herself, heads for the bathroom, and about 10 seconds later, we hear her say, "What the F?" Me, Dad, and my husband all go to look, and about 3 feet up the wall is a large scribble in crayon. It starts at 3 feet up, and the highest point of it is around 6 feet off the ground. We go back to the table and tell the others what we saw. David immediately looks guilty. At this point, we ask the kids to leave the room, so it's just me, my sister, my husband, and our parents at the table. My kids are shorter than average, with Jacob barely being over 3.5 feet tall and Carolyn being just about 3 feet. Neither are tall enough to have drawn 6 feet high. David is a little over 4 feet tall, and he could have reached that high. Grace immediately tells me that I shouldn't have brought Carolyn and Jacob with me. Of course, something was going to happen. I started to explain that the height of the picture ruled out my kids, but she interrupted, saying that of course I'm going to put the blame on her kids, because my kids can do no wrong in my eyes. I responded that my kids aren't angels. I'm not going to sit here and say they've never done anything wrong, but they know better than to draw on walls. Grace then gets angry, saying that I'm implying that she didn't raise her kids properly, and how dare I accuse her children. I say that Rose is a great kid, but her sons have a history of doing stuff like this. The drawing is too high up to be my kids, which leaves her boys to be the likely suspects. Grace then says it has to be one of my brats who did it because she raised all of her children better than that. In anger, I say, "You didn't effing raise them." She gets quiet, collects her kids and leaves. Rose refuses and stays with us. I end up cleaning up the mess on the wall, and Jacob tells me that he saw David in the arts and crafts box. My parents want me to apologize to keep peace, and Rose says that while she gets where I'm coming from, she's getting calls from her mum saying she needs to come home and complaining about me. So until I apologize, Rose is dealing with it. I still haven't contacted her to apologize, and I have no intention of doing so. Am I the a-hole? Update. David confessed to the drawing. Grace texted her saying David confessed and Rose should have watched him better, and this would have never happened. Grace hasn't contacted me yet and has made it clear to Rose that she still expects an apology. For people asking about CPS, we have social services here. I work in education, and I have a friend at social services. I told her about the situation as a hypothetical, and she pretty much said that I could report it, but the best case is that they would monitor the situation, but not intervene just yet, as they struggle to define parentification and struggle to get it classified as something bad enough to remove the child from the home. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. She decided to get snarky with you after you tried to diplomatically point out that the culprit had to be one of her kids, as the marking on the wall was too tall for your own kids to have accomplished, and then has the gall to complain and whine and create background drama when she gets burned. I feel sorry for the 13-year-old. I can't imagine what her home life is like. Everyone sucks here. I assume that this conversation took place at a volume that the kids could hear it. Grace needs to control her temper and language, but neither of you took any adult-like actions here. Just passing the kids' blame back and forth. Try to talk to the kids instead of mentioning them in an adult conversation. Her kids probably didn't enjoy hearing that their mom didn't raise them.